As a restoration company, you really only have a few ways of how you can get leads. Any business in general. I mean, this is initially from kind of the four ways of getting clients from Alex Hormozi, you know, the four angles, and I'm just repurposing it specifically for restoration companies. I'm on my beautiful balcony. We'll talk here for a little bit until it's dark and you cannot see me, or until I finish this video. If you haven't met yet, my name is Gregory, nice to meet you. All we do here on this channel is talk about marketing specifically for restoration companies, tips, how they can scale, you know, any marketing advice that I can provide free value out here. I've personally have helped restoration companies all over the country, and currently we're working with a lot of restoration companies all over the country, helping them scale. But yeah, right now I wanted to talk to you about really the four ways how a restoration company can get leads. And I'm just going to talk about the angles that, you know, I kind of go into my content and kind of, you know, the messaging that we usually use within the company. So we have paid, we have organic, partnerships and relationships, and then the fourth one is word of mouth. So those are the four quadrants essentially. So let's go over each of them. Let's start with the paid, let's start the partnership, word of mouth, and then we can finish with organic. So in terms of the paid side of things, so let's, for Google side of things, we're gonna take Google Ads, which is pay-per-click obviously, and we have LSA Ads, which is Google Guaranteed, you pay per lead. With Google Ads and Google Guaranteed, and those are, you know, they work slightly different. The Google Guaranteed side of things, it connects directly to your Google business profile. So if your Google business profile is not optimized, it doesn't have that many reviews, it's not really ranking organically, your LSA ads are barely gonna bring you any calls. With LSA ads, the thing is, like, you don't really control anything. You just tell Google, hey, I'm willing to spend 10 grand, and here's you connect your Google business profile, and that's it. Whenever we run LSA campaigns for clients, again, we can adjust the budget a little bit and add pictures each week. So that helps a little bit with adjusting the budget a little bit and adding pictures each week. But realistically, the best thing you can do is having your profile optimized, have it ranking, having a bunch of reviews on your profile. Now, on the Google Ads side of things, you can actually control. There's many things you can adjust, control in order to get leads. You can control your landing page, you can control your form, your application form, you can control how fast your page loads. That affects how many leads you're gonna get. How quickly you respond if someone submits a form, how quickly you call that person. So it's good. You have a lot of control. You can scale it technically. So like if you're spending 10 grand a month on ads, and you can gradually scale 15, 20, 30, 40K, obviously as long as you're profitable on your ads. But the downside is that you have to spend that money. Like, if specifically with restoration industry, you and I both know one of the highest industries in terms of the lead cost. That means that you have to spend a lot of money. If you have $1,000, $2,000, maybe $3,000 that you're like, okay, let me run Google Ads and, you know, kind of test things out with $2,000. You might get lucky, you might get a job or two, but most likely you will lose your money. Between 5 and 10,000, that's usually when you're ready to invest. You have, you know, you're willing to invest 5 to 10,000 on ads. That's usually the best thing. And then obviously if we're talking about franchises, like for example, if you're in a market where there's a ServPro or any of the big franchises that are willing to spend a shit ton of money on ads, it's gonna be very hard to compete with them. Like if someone is willing to spend 40 grand, like, cause on the advertising platform, you gotta understand it's a bidding game. Whoever is willing to pay more to be shown is going to win on the platform. And people don't usually scroll down. Usually people, if they click on the ads, this is another topic that I might talk about a different day, that not a lot of people even click on the ads nowadays, specifically with emergency jobs. They usually just call people who are organically, but again, we can talk about it a different day if you want me to talk about that. But again, if a franchise is willing to spend 40 grand a month, it's going to be like, you have to spend $40,000 a month if you want to outbid them. And that is kind of the main thing why, you know, I'm against, if you're a restoration company that's doing, you know, below $1 million. So that is the main thing with paid ads and the LSA ads I already explained. So is it too dark? Let's see. Can you guys see me? I don't know if you guys can see me. I gotta go check my camera, but if it's too dark, we might have to go inside. So let me go check. So it looks like it is too dark, but you can still see my face, and it's a nice cozy with some lamps here, so we're gonna stay here on the balcony. All right, so by the way, this is sparkling water. I love sparkling water. I love working on this balcony at night. I often just come. It's a huge balcony, so I sit here at the table, work on my computer, drink some sparkling water, have an incredible night. So yeah, recommend for you to do that too if you have a balcony. Back to this. So pay that's out of here. We're done with them. So now let's go into partnerships. So with partnerships, we can also separate it into obviously a couple of subcategories or subterms. We have insurance carriers, we have TPA work that send you work, and then we have plumbers. They send you the job, you pay them a commission. That is the positive. The positive is that, you know, it's a for sure job. It's 100% guaranteed. Whenever they send you a person, then you're gonna take it and you're gonna make money, a bunch of money. You know, a job can be 10,000, 15,000, 20,000. Big jobs could come from partnerships. The problem is, and here's we're gonna go to the negative, is that you cannot really scale partnerships, or at least it's very hard to scale it, because building a partnership with with a partner or insurance carrier takes time. You know, you gotta go meet with them, you gotta maybe send them some gifts, maybe text them happy birthday on their birthday, if their kids goes to school. Build a relationship, obviously. So building a relationship takes time. You know, it's humans. This is not like marketing knobs that we can turn on, turn off. We're dealing with humans here. So it's hard. It's hard. It's not. So it's usually not scalable. Also, if an insurance carrier doesn't like you anymore, they're gonna stop sending you jobs, and then like someone else decides if you eat next month or you don't, if you get jobs next month or you don't. And that is usually not a really good way to run a company, any company, and a restoration company that we're talking here specifically. So that is the good and the bad about the partnerships. But other than that, I mean, it's still a great source of leads. So as you run your restoration company, building partnerships is something that you should focus as part of a strategy, but never do that and rely on it as a core strategy that will make or break your business. So that's partnerships. Let's put it over here with the things that we're done. So now we're gonna talk about word of mouth. So word of mouth, I mean, word of mouth is pretty simple. I mean, the good things about it is obviously that you get the jobs here and there from people that know you, or someone had a flood and then the neighbor down the street had a flood too because a major storm just came. So, you know, the neighbor calls you, and then the other neighbor asks the other neighbor, hey, what restoration company you use? So he tells him, oh, we use Bob's the restorer to restore our property. And now that other neighbor is calling Bob the restorer. So that is essentially how it works, but there's no way of scaling. If you rely on word of mouth, I don't know what you're doing. You probably are sitting on your couch without any jobs, to be honest. Yeah, and you're just waiting for luck. It's basically luck at that point. You're trying to rely on luck. So yeah, definitely don't do that. That's the main point I'm trying to make here. And then also a little one that I want to add here before I go into the organic is shared leads and buying leads. I talked slightly about it in the paid side of things. Essentially with paper lead like Angie's List, or there's other marketing companies that will generate the leads and send them to you. If the leads are good, the leads are good. That's a positive. If the leads are good and you're getting the jobs, let's say out of 3 leads you get a job, you pay $500, $600 for a lead, so that's like $1,800. You do a job for 10 grand, boom, you just made a 9-8 return on the money that you put into the leads that you bought. So if that's the case, that's great, obviously. But the problem with it is that majority of lead companies sell shared leads. So that means that other than you, 8 other restoration contractors are getting that same lead. And at that point, it essentially becomes a game of who can charge me less. The customer is thinking, who can charge me less? So you're playing a losing game that you don't want to find yourself in, because whoever is competing on price, it's a race to the bottom. and you don't want to race to the bottom. You want to build a profitable restoration company. Also, it's usually hard to scale. In theory, you think about it, I'm paying per lead, and then if I want more leads, I just pay for more leads, I ask for more leads. But a lot of times, once you reach a certain threshold, the company that's selling you the leads, it might give you some type of excuse of, this is just how the market is right now. We can't give you more leads. So again, you're relying on you don't have a system. You're not building things in house. You're essentially outsourcing it and renting your leads. You're renting the lead source versus building on it. So again, if you're relying on that one sole source of just buying leads, that is not a good way to run a business, because first, you can't really scale it. Second, you might share leads and the contact information with a bunch of other contractors, and you're just competing on price at that point. And then the third thing is you're just relying on someone else. So if they stop giving you leads one month, or the leads slow down, they essentially control your revenue. They control how fast you grow, and how much revenue you make, which, you want to control that. You want to own that. You want to control how many leads you get, not have someone else control that. So that is a quick talk about the pay-per lead, which goes into like the category of paid, but I just wanted to talk more about it. Now we're coming to the organic side of things. So organic side of things is usually going to be Google. It's not usually going to be, it's not going to be like the social media side of things, organic. You can definitely post content on social media to build a brand. So like in town, people start to recognize your face, they start to know who you are. So not just like some gimmicky images of floods, but like actual owner on camera talking about, different jobs you guys might have completed. That's what builds a brand. But again, that is really a brand play. It's not really a lead source. Some of it might come from that, but not like actually consistent leads. I even had a company recently reach out to us that they have, I think he told me they have like 200,000 followers on Instagram, so like a big following, and they were doing exactly that. They were doing, videos of the owner on camera showing jobs and things like that, and it was entertaining content, so people would follow. So they had a lot of followers, but they weren't getting any jobs. They reached out to us because they sometimes the jobs comes in from Instagram, sometimes it doesn't. So they couldn't really rely on that. So when I talk about organic, I mainly talk about the Google side of things, of people searching for water damage restoration services in New York or whatever town you live in, or water damage restoration services near me, and your company pops up. Now on Google, there's two ways you can really show up organically. You can show up on the maps, which is what we call a Google Map Pack, and you can show up on the organic SEO results, which is like your website. Whenever someone's house is flooded, just to give you an example, they usually don't go, also to kind of give my point on social media, they usually don't go on social media to look for the restoration company, or they usually don't go like, oh, I have a company that I follow on Instagram that does this entertaining restoration videos, etc. They usually go to Google. They go to Google, they search water damage restoration services near me, or burst pipe services near me, and they go and call whoever's ranked number 1 or number 2 or number 3, which is the map pack. They look at the reviews, whoever pops up there, they have good reviews, boom, they call them. They don't have too much time to think, they don't have too much time to scroll through the website. They have an emergency, they need to call someone now. There's studies on like the percentages of how many people click on the ads, how many people click on the website, how many people click on the maps, and specifically for a local intent search, usually around 60 to 80% of people click on the map pack, specifically on the top 3 results. So that's where like majority of the people and majority of the searches usually go. So our strategy is focused all around ranking there. Now for you specifically as a restoration owner, you want to invest not in the organic side of things on Google, and like actually being the brand, the go-to brand, and not just like the organic website SEO, bunch of backlinks, bunch of pages, which is important. I'm not saying that it's not, but the main focus that you should have is, as a restoration owner who is an emergency, provides emergency restoration services, is the map pack, because that's where, like I said, 60 to 80% of your people, which is the majority, are gonna be. And ideally, you don't wanna just have one Google business profile. Ideally, you wanna have 3, 5, 6, 10 different Google business profiles that are all ranking. So that way, whenever people are searching from a different side of town, because Google also gives people the proximity. That's like one of the biggest factors in the rankings. It's the proximity factor. So how close is a person actually to the business, and then everything else comes, which is like the optimizations, the reviews, etc. But proximity is like one of the main things that Google looks at. So ideally, you want to have a bunch of those Google profiles all across the city, scattered, so any point of the any side of the town that the person searches for restoration, your company is popping up as like the top choice. And the good thing about it is that, first of all, it's a high intent people, because people who have an emergency service and they're calling you usually are going to be like, hey, I need you here right now. And they are, obviously price is important, but it's not as important for someone who has an emergency. Then the second thing is that you can actually scale this, because like I said, we don't want just one Google business profile. Let's say you have one Google business profile, you get 10, 15 calls from it. But if you want to scale it, if you want to scale the calls you get and the jobs you get on a monthly basis, you can just add more profiles, and you got to do strategically. You can't just say, I want a profile in that neighborhood. No, it has to be strategically. You got to do research. Hey, do people actually search for restoration services in those areas? So you're not only relying on whenever a major, storm, a major catastrophic weather event hits, but you actually want to be there, on a regular basis. So whenever people are searching for mold, or I don't know if maybe you provide fire damage restoration services as well. So that is kind of the main way that I recommend all the people and all restoration companies to kind of focus on, and that is the main strategy that we focus on in our agency. Obviously, all of the strategies that I'm showing you here in this video, the paid, pay-per-lead, partnership, photo mouse, they're good in some way. So you shouldn't just say, this is the only thing I'm gonna do. Even with this, I would say this is like the foundation of being the top choice in your market, and you're gonna get a ton of business from this alone, and on a consistent basis, like I said. Because essentially, if you're ranking everywhere, the leads are not going to go anywhere. Like if people are looking for unless everyone in your town doesn't need a restoration service, and all of these other ways are not going to get you leads anyways. So this is kind of the core thing that we focus on. And then again, implement little. Of course, you can implement things like, for example, once we get to a point like with organic where we're getting maybe 50, 60, 70 jobs a month, and it will depend on what your goals with the company. If you want to get to 100K, 200, 300K a month in revenue with your business, maybe you want to get to $1 million a month. I don't know. Maybe you want to get to multi-million-dollar months, and you want to scale, a brand that's, myself, or an 8-9 figure exit. I don't know what your goal specifically is, but in terms of the strategy here, we focus on the way we usually build it is we focus on the organic. We get it to a point where we're getting a consistent flow of leads, and then once a restoration owner is mentally ready, because the money's there, you put it into ads, that's it. So it's more of a mentally sort of like, hey, I have to spend $10,000 a month, and if it doesn't work, we gotta keep testing it, keep spending in order to make it work, and actually make a ton of money from the ads. So that is usually the order that I have. If you enjoyed the video, please leave me a comment, leave me a like. I would love to hear your thoughts. If you're a restoration company and there's some specific things that you might want to, again, this is just one of the first initial videos that I'm uploading here on my YouTube channel. So if you're a restoration company and you have specific thoughts or specific ideas that you would like to hear about, specifically when it comes to Google, specifically when it comes to marketing, then yeah, leave you a comment. I'm more than happy to chat. And maybe you have any questions, or record more of this style of videos, record more of the content for you guys, for restoration owners out there, so you can grow and scale your company. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you in other videos. Cheers.